So tonight we're going to do something a little different than what I usually do. Usually we have a review or something going on, and I'd planned on having a comic review short, but I was going to do a short review on G.I. Joe issue number 1 from Skybound in the Energon universe, but I run into a couple of issues, like for whatever decision, for whatever reason, it makes absolutely no sense. But they decided in their trade paperback not to include any covers at all in the entire thing. You have no covers at the back, you have no covers between the issues, you have virtually no way to know where issue 1 ends, where issue 2 ends, where issue 3 ends. And I get that they want you to read it as one story, but realistically, a lot of people have a lot of things going on that they can't devote 2 hours to reading an entire story at one sitting. So it's nice to, at least for my opinion, to have, when you run into a cover for the next issue or something, it's an easy, okay, I can take a break here. And I don't like to do reviews without covers because I can't make a decent thumbnail for it. And I could go on, find images and lolly lolly lolly. But the problem is I have to do even more research to figure out where a certain issue ended at and a new one started. And I'll just end up doing a complete book review for it probably tomorrow. Uh, but that aside, that's not what this video is about. This video is a different type of rant video, and it's basically ranting at how Marvel has, in my opinion, has mistreated Spider-Man and Spider-Man fans and X-Men fans and the X-Men of late. So I may be wrong, but I believe that your average, everyday comic book readers are no longer kids. That's not your vast majority of your group reading these anymore. I personally don't think kids are very interested in this anymore. I mean, they're into the movies, but I don't. Kids just aren't into reading anything much anymore. Uh, so I personally don't believe that kids are buying these like they were when I was younger. Uh, and every time I go to the comic shop, there's about 3 or 4 comic shops in the area that I will peek through, given every other Wednesday. And there's never any kids in there. It's all people my age or older. So I don't believe that the younger generation that Marvel is making these current stories and stuff for are even there. Uh, I think it's a situation of something as popular as Spider-Man and X-Men that we grew up as reading as kids back when it was at its peaks. We, as the older generation, are still buying them just because we have that memories of what it used to be, and we just keep buying it because we're devoted to the characters. And Marvel is getting these mixed signals that we're liking what they're dumping out, and it's a give and take. I mean, it's a bad situation on both sides because the way things are run now, if we quit buying something for an extended amount of time, Marvel's going to think there's no interest in it and just cancel it or shelf it for a while. Marvel's not going to come to the realization that they're pitching stuff to a group that's not there. So we as fans know we have to keep buying and supporting this stuff or we won't get anything. But, and of course, this, like I said, this is all my personal opinion. People agree with it, people would disagree with it, and that's perfectly fine. I'm not pushing my opinion on nobody. This is just how I feel about it. This is from my experiences. When I go to, say, McKay's, which is a used bookstore in the area, they sell used comics. There's never any kids over there. It's always grown adults are in the comics. The graphic novel area, never any kids. It's always grown adults. And the grown adults, and when I say grown adults, I'm talking people in their 30s, 40s, 50s. I've seen people in their 70s over there. These aren't part of your woke society and all this other stuff they're trying to push now. That's going on in the culture age now. That stuff. I'm a firm believer that the politics and the major culture stuff shouldn't be reflected in my comics as a push point. It should be touched on in certain areas just to give tribute to the era that it's in. Like when you pick up a old Spider-Man from the 70s, it's got that 70s feel, it's got the 70s clothing in it, it's got the 70s slang in it, but it doesn't push in every issue what's going on in the culture at the time. You'll get it here and there. You'll get it. Like every once in a while, like in the 80s or whatever, they would mention in a Nick Fury book or something about the Cold War or something, but you wouldn't have that reflected in Wolverine or something. Like it was all title appropriate. It all fit in a proper place. Uh, where now it's pushed in everything. It's more important than the story you're telling now, and they don't care if they have to bend your character that you have 60 years of popularity on. They don't care if they have to take that character and bend him out of frame and make him what he's not to push that agenda. Uh, I mean, I look at perfect example is Spider-Man right now. Spider-Man has not really been a good read for me. Dan Slott was okay. Dan Slott played with a lot of new ideas with the Spider-Verse and got me interested in it. Dan Slott was okay. His stuff wasn't bad. I mean, it wasn't what I wanted, but it wasn't bad. Like it was pretty good. And then we got to what come after that? Not Zeb Wells. I can't remember. He done the whole thing with Kindred and all that. There was two volumes of Omnis based on him. I can't remember, but it was the whole Kindred stuff with I can't. I don't want to spoil a lot of it, but especially the Kindred stuff. But you had him writing it for a while. He done a good job. I liked him. Man, I wish I could remember who he was. My memory ain't what it was. But he did a really good Spider-Man job. I mean, once again, he had a lot of stories that weren't the best, like the Gog stories or whatever. The Spider-Man being roommates with Boomerang was a needless story. But then he had his once you got halfway through his run to where you started getting to the Green Goblin stuff, and you finally started getting to the revelations of Kindred. Uh, they finally brought Spider-Man and Mary Jane back together again at the end. That was all. That was all good. And then they turned around and with the Zeb Wells run, I don't know what was going on with that because they had finally set Mary Jane and Spider Man back up that us older people, the ones who were carrying the books, have to this day still want to see that we never understood why they had to get ripped apart in the first place. Uh, they had just got back together, and you have Zeb Wells come in, and the first thing they do is go 6 months or something, whatever, a year into the future or whatever. There's a year gap there, and they're not together anymore. And Mary Jane is with some other guy with 2 kids. And Spider Man's being, or Peter necessarily, is being dumped on for everything. I mean, it's just. Marvel's trying so hard to alienate the people who are keeping Marvel floating. Uh, The Zeb Wells stories were not very good. I didn't think so. I think he wrote Beyond, Spider-Man Beyond. That was okay. But the series that come, his main series that come after that, where he got on the actual ongoing, that was hard. And I still have not read all of it. It was hard. It was it. I don't know. It was bad. And I thought when we were finally getting rid of him that we would get on to something better. And that's when who took it over? Joe Kelly, I think. Joe Kelly took it over, and I don't know how, but it has stayed just as bad or gotten worse because they are still pushing this Paul and Mary Jane thing. Uh, the storylines are terrible with Norman Osborn. Him and Peter's getting along like nothing ever happened with him and Gwen. I mean, oh my gosh. But anyway, so you take the stories from, say, the last 8 years and compare them to what was going on in the 80s, the 90s. I mean, I would take a lot of people are not fans of the Clone Saga, and I like the Clone Saga. It was around somewhere, it started just a little bit after I started reading Spider-Man. My first issue of Spider-Man, my very first comic ever, was bought off a Food Line metal spinner, and it was Web of Spider-Man issue number 97. And there for a while, Spider-Man was all I read. And the Clone Saga started with what, like 104, I think, was the start of the Clone Saga. Web of Spider-Man 104. It was like part 2 or something. So I was only in there about 3-4 months. I mean, I come in Web of Spider-Man 97. I finished that little think it was like a 3 or 4 part story with the Rose, and then we were in the middle of Maximum Carnage, and then we jumped into the Clone Saga. And I will always like the Clone Saga because that was part of my beginning of Spider-Man. But I've tried rereading it over the years, and I do still like it. But I feel like it kind of it went on too long, just like the Batman Nightfall. Batman Nightfall was a phenomenal story, but when they done what was the middle story, Night was it Night Quest? I think it was Night Quest, where John Paul had took over Batman. That lasted way too long. That was way too long. It was burning Batman fans out hard. Uh, and that's how the Spider-Man Clone Saga was. Well, I would still take all of that over what's going on now. I mean, it is. I don't understand. Marvel is firmly against Peter and Mary Jane being together for the fans that from the old school, because there is no new school no more. Us old school people are all that's holding Marvel afloat. And they seen that when they came out with Ultimate Spider-Man #1 from the new Ultimate Spider-Man universe, that they're already shutting it down. It was one of the biggest #1s of the Ultimate Spider-Mans that's come out in years. It got the biggest reception of Spider-Man in years because they had Peter and Mary Jane married with a family. And somewhere down the line, you had somebody in Marvel who is no, 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 we can't have that. It doesn't appeal to our younger group who comes in. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, there is no younger group coming in. These comic videos I do, YouTube shows me the age statistics of people that look at them. They're they're not in their teens. They're not even in their young adults. I mean, people I'm watching are 25. People who's watching me are 25 and up. These people, they're already married. Most of them, I'm sure. They're already raising a family. They're following my channel. They're into the comics. I'm not getting views from 13-year-old people. I'm not getting views from 18-year-olds. It's people who know about responsibility, and Spider-Man, that is Spider-Man. So Marvel decided, you know what? We got to get rid of the Ultimate Universe because people are enjoying them two being together again. Let's do away with it. So that's my rant on Spider-Man. Now let's do my rant on X-Men. I will bring another example to the table. The Krakoa age was okay, and the only reason I feel like it was so widely accepted by everybody, and everybody likes to say it's one of the best X-Men stories in years, and I will agree that it is one of the best X-Men stories in years, but that's only because we have not had any good X-Men stories in years. And I grew up during when I started reading comics was when Jim Lee started doing X-Men #1. And I spent I don't know how much money in the comic shops picking up old X-Men classic reprints of the old issues of Chris Claremont's run. Uh, Chris Claremont and Jim Lee, I don't care what X-Men you throw in front of me, they will never beat their X-Men stories. And I feel like Marvel has lost their grip on X-Men because they feel like, I guess, since the culture has moved toward this woke stuff and accepting people who were not accepted 20 years ago, that they can push it on the X-Men. And I don't know. I mean, like, very first thing they done was changed Iceman from being straight into being gay. And I have no issues with gay people. I have no issues with straight people. I mean, your preference is your preference. I'm a firm believer in what you like was what you like. What I have a problem with is when you take my original character that has been established for 60 years and you want to change him. If you need a person of a different sexual orientation on the team, do like they used to do. What's the matter with all these writers and artists that you can't come up with original characters anymore? I mean, back in the day, Chris Claremont and them, if they wanted to try something new, they bring in a new character. You don't replace what works. You just bring in something new, and if it works, great. There's you a whole nother character to exploit for money later down the road. If it don't work, you know what? You tried, and you didn't upset your fan base. I mean, there's a lot of characters that were tried and never worked out. Like Maggot. They tried to push Maggot. A few clung to him, but most of the people didn't like him. That's why you don't see him anymore. I don't fault them for trying, because that's what these comics need is you don't want the same character over and over and over and over. I mean, you do, but you like to see new ones come in for these old characters to mix in with. There's only so many interactions you can see with Spider-Man and Human Torch. I like to see Spider-Man interacting with more people. I like to see him interacting with new people. You know, give me a new character. You want to try something, instead of changing Captain America, taking Captain America out and replacing him with Falcon, which at the time that was a popular thing, was let's switch the race of characters. And I don't agree with that. You know, Captain America has been one of their longest established characters. Why do we feel the need to replace him just to change the color? I mean, there are plenty of other. If you wanted a black lead for Marvel, there are a lot of excellent choices that Marvel has already proven works. Black Panther. Black Panther is a very, very great character. And I believe when they put the Black Panther movie out, it showed that he could be a leader for Marvel, that you don't have to redress an original character. Luke Cage, when Luke Cage was put in the New Avengers, he fit. I was very weary of Luke Cage in the New Avengers just because I always knew him as Power Man. But when somebody invested time into him and modernized his character, he become a great, great character. So I feel like artists and writers are getting extremely lazy, and they know the characters that make money, like Spider-Man, Captain America. They know the characters that make money. instead of ruining that character by taking him out, sidelining him for a while, and replacing him with whatever is cool with the culture at the time, just make a new character or push one of your already established characters. But that's we're still talking about X-Men, so the X-Men, it used to be about family. It used to be about fitting in a world that you didn't fit into. It was about a group of people who had absolutely nothing in common, but were forced to find common ground, and it worked. So now you established all these major characters like Cyclops, Professor X. The big thing for the last 15 years has been let's stomp Professor X into the ground, make him the most evilest mutant that ever existed when he used to be the I won't say the best of them all, but he was the father of all of them. And I remember growing up and reading these, and it was like an extended family I didn't know I had. And now it's all for the last 10 years, maybe even longer than that, it's all been about splintered parts of the family that just don't get along. It's like every story has to be built around how dysfunctional these X-Men, these splintered X-Men groups are with each other. It's not about family anymore. And that's why X-Men is not working right now. That's why when Krakoa age come along and they actually brought everybody under one roof again, it felt like it was the best X-Men comic in years because it was kind of starting to feel like X-Men again. I mean, the problem is you had the evil mutants and all mixed in with it, so you weren't getting the big fights you wanted. You weren't getting the satisfactory Magneto and X-Men battles, the Sinister and X-Men battles. I mean, but you were getting that X-Men belonging as a family again. That's why Krakoa worked. That's why everybody in the last 10 years said that's the best X-Men has been in years. Because that's the closest X-Men has been to actually being X-Men in 20 years. So my rant is coming to an end. Marvel needs to wake up and see that the old group is the only group they have. And if I'm wrong, if you're under 18 years old and you're reading comics, leave me a comment. Let me know because I'm not seeing it. I think Marvel is focusing their attention on trying to win over a group that isn't even there. And they're ignoring the group that is. So that's my thought on X-Men and Spider-Man. That's my rant. Leave a comment on if you agree or not. This is an open discussion. There is no right or wrong. I'm not right. I'm not wrong. It's my opinion. I'd like to hear yours. Give me an opinion on how you feel. Tell me how long you've been reading. Let me know what your first issue of comics was. Uh, Let me know if you know anybody under the age of 18 reading any of this stuff that you're not providing. That somebody that's actively going out and buying this stuff. So let me know about how you feel about X-Men, Spider-Man in their current states. Leave me a like and a subscribe if you are interested in hearing more.